Joining me on today's show is a very special guest, Miss Maki Utsumi. I think you'll find her very interesting, as I do. She'll be joining us in a few minutes, but for now, I'd love to hear from you. So please say hello in the comment thread and tell me what country you're watching from. And we already have some folks joining us. We have longtime fan of the show, Chris Derboven, watching from Belgium, very late in the evening, I think. Welcome, Chris, as always. We have Muhammad Rana Islam joining us. I'm not sure from what country, but welcome. We also have Khan from Pakistan joining us. Thank you very much for joining us. We also have Emmanuel from Uganda. Welcome, Emmanuel. And we have Facebook user. Now, the reason it says Facebook user is because you're watching from a Facebook group, which is lovely, but it means I can't see your name. It doesn't appear. So, and it's my friend Fawad from Morocco. So already, guys, you can see how many different countries people are watching in. That's just fantastic to me. It's my dream as an English teacher has always been to reach more people around the world online than I ever could in a classroom. So when I see that happening, I'm very, very pleased. It doesn't matter what country you're watching from, you're all welcome here. The more, the merrier. Who else is watching? Let's see, we've got a few people popping in. Yep. Now again, we have a guest tonight, which takes away some of our time from board work, but she's brought some very interesting questions from her students. So we'll still have some time to investigate some grammar mysteries. However, if you have questions about grammar, I'd love it if you just wrote it in the comments. And then next week's show, I'll definitely answer them for you. It's always the challenge when we have a guest. We don't have a lot of time to answer your specific questions, but I'm sure you'll have questions for the guest. So save your questions, but write them in here for me, and we'll address them as soon as we can. You can also, guys, you can also send me an email during the week with your questions. So here's my email address, hardboiledenglish6@gmail.com. And you can just type a question for me, or even better, send me a little video clip, a little selfie clip of you asking the question, and then I'll put that right on the show. So you can be a guest star of the show. And again, just send it here, or connect with me on social media and send me a video then. Now, if you're watching on Facebook, or LinkedIn, or Twitter, or Twitch, I have to tell you, the best place to watch this show is on YouTube, because they have the best picture quality, and also you can join the community and hear about all the updates and watch the other videos. Plus, after today, starting tomorrow morning, I always post the recording on YouTube channel, not the other platforms. So if you don't see all of tonight's show, you go to the YouTube channel, please subscribe, and you can see all the recordings there. Okay, so if you haven't, please go to the YouTube channel, The Grammar Detective, or @The Grammar Detective, and subscribe to the channel. Join my community. We are growing. We are growing. Slowly but surely, but we are growing. We have Nayana joining us, Nayana's Journeys, joining us from Sri Lanka. Fabulous to have you here with us. Okay, email, yes. I will put the email again. If you want to send me a grammar question, email it to me right here. But the best way to send me a grammar question is a little selfie video. Okay? Or you can write it in the comment and we'll answer it as soon as possible. We may not have time tonight because we have a special guest, but I will record that question and get to it next week for sure. All right. And by the way, this show is free for you to watch, but it's not free for me to make. So if you're feeling generous and you want to donate $1 to support this show, you can use this QR code right here. Just scan it and you can donate $1 to the show. $1 is not a lot of money, but it adds up and helps me support this show because it costs me money to make this show. and I want to continue bringing it to you. So if you're feeling generous, you don't have to, but if you are, $1 is much appreciated. We also have with us Intan from Indonesia. Welcome. Intan, maybe an English teacher. Intan, are you an English teacher? If you are, great. Great for you to join us. Okay, we'll bring our guest on shortly. Just want to make sure I have a moment here to say hello to everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm sure wherever you are in the world, it's not a convenient time to be watching my show, so I very much appreciate it. I know it's probably 2 or 3 a.m. in Belgium, where Chris Derboven is watching. So now I want you to tell me what time it is where you live. Okay? If you're in Sri Lanka, what time is it? If you're in Morocco, what time is it? If you're in Uganda, Emmanuel, tell me what time it is. This is good because we can see how dedicated this community is to making an effort to watch the show live. Of course you can watch the recording, right? But you can't ask questions on the recording. So Facebook user, is that Fuad? 1:10 a.m. That's dedication. Amazing. Morocco is 1:10, yes, great. How about Sri Lanka and Pakistan? That area, that region. 2 a.m. in Belgium. We have Luza joining us from Colombia, where it is 7:10 p.m. Okay, 5:09 a.m. in Pakistan. Khan is an early riser. 3:10 p.m. in Uganda. Amazing. So whether you're finishing your work day or your school day or you're starting your day, welcome. Okay, Emmanuel, so it's 3:10 a.m. So I don't know if you're waking up or staying up late. Thank you for joining us. I understand it's challenging. Many people have asked me, why don't I stream on a better time for them? The challenge, of course, is I want to stream this every week, so it has to fit my schedule. And the only chance I have is my Friday evening, which makes it early in the morning or late at night for many of you. So I know it's a challenge, but it's really the only way I can keep doing this. Unfortunately, 5 p.m. North American time. This is interesting. I'm a newbie in teaching English. I'm sure I'll learn a lot from this live. Here in my city, it's 7:10 a.m. Well, in Indonesia, right? Thank you for waking up early to join us. And I really appreciate English teachers joining us. On this show, usually, I answer your grammar questions. So not only English learners, but English teachers have grammar questions. Not all teachers are really specialized in teaching grammar. Not all teachers enjoy it. Not all, including native speakers, really understand grammar. It's sort of a hobby and a specialty of mine. So that's why I created this show, so we'll learn and improve our grammar understanding together. And that's what my YouTube channel is all about. So for those of you who are new and you haven't yet, please go to my YouTube channel, The Grammar Detective, where you can watch this live every week and see the recordings of the show after it goes live. Although we're streaming on Facebook and LinkedIn, after the live show, they don't host the recordings, only on my YouTube channel. So it's worth joining the community on the YouTube channel. And, you know, whether you're a learner or a teacher, you are welcome here. This is a safe learning place for all of us. Okay, I love answering your questions. The more challenging, the better. So if you want to keep improving your grammar knowledge, sometimes your students ask you questions, Intan, maybe you feel uncomfortable answering them. Bring that question to me on the show every Friday night, my Friday night, your Saturday morning, and we can work on it together, okay? And even perhaps by watching how I investigate or analyze the grammar, maybe you can pick up some tips that are useful for you in your teaching, all right? So whatever the case, thank you for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. It's great to have you with us. And again, please subscribe to the channel so you can be part of the community and see all the updates and all the other videos too. I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but on my YouTube channel, you can also find my web series, which is called English Weirdness. And this is, this is a long form series that I made with my students. And each episode is 30 minutes long, and each episode investigates one specific grammar problem that's very common. And there's little dramatizations, there's animations, and in-depth analysis. So whether you're a student or a teacher, this is a good series for really understanding some of the common problems with grammar. So please check that out. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's about time to bring my guest on and introduce you to her. Let me just clear the captions. So my guest is Maki Utsumi. She's a language tutor from Japan who assists learners in both English and Japanese. She's also the creator behind an amazing project called Writers Carvings. And I'm going to bring up the graphic for that. You can see her logo right here. Oh, where is it? Yeah, right here. So look for that on Instagram, where she does most of her posting. Writers Carvings is a really interesting writing community that provides a platform for English learners, most of whom are writing enthusiasts. And they can connect with one another, share their work in a safe and encouraging place, and improve. And as a writer myself, I know that belonging to writers' communities where people really support each other and offer advice and tips and feedback is incredibly powerful. So with her tonight, we're going to talk about writing, we're going to talk about some grammar, and she's brought some questions from her students. So before we bring her on, this is a little segment I love to call our witness interrogation program. Just special guests. So in a moment, we'll meet Ms. Maki Utsumi. And welcome, Maki. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for the invite. I'm very excited. And I see a lot of great, amazing people here. I was really
Do you know some of them?
Yes, I know Intan and Diana. They are in my community and they are
Great.
supporters for me. they are here for me, actually.
And your cheerleading department.
Yes, I'm so happy.
Wonderful. Oh, this is interesting. Just before we get going here, I read my books while waiting for your live stream every Friday. So again, for Emmanuel, it's quite late in the evening. So Emmanuel, thank you for staying up. I appreciate it. Yes, okay, so we've got a nice bunch of guests with us tonight, Maki, and you're with us. So thank you for joining the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You've been on the show before during the Christmas special where we had a whole bunch of guests, right?
Yeah. That was fun.
But I think, well, it was fun to have you. However, it's been a long time, so I really want to catch up with you. Now, there are going to be some guests who aren't familiar with you, so can you just tell us, let's go back in time, Maki. You grew up in Japan, but tell us a little bit about your experience growing up in Japan and how you got into your English journey to where you are now. Can you sort of tell us your life story?
Sure. Hi, Diana. She said hi, so I wanted to say hi. So,
Of course.
In Japan, when I was a teenager or when I was a child, English education started in junior high school. So I started studying English when I was in junior high school, and I built the foundation or the basic English in school. Junior high school, high school. I went to Teachers University So I got an English teacher's license, and then after graduating university, I went to Canada, actually Vancouver. I went to Vancouver. I was there for
Wow.
3 months to take a TESOL course.
Yay.
Yay! It was 15 years ago, so I'm sure Vancouver has changed a lot, right? I hope to
Yeah.
see what's it like now.
What school did you go to?
Ah, like my school was downtown. I forgot the name, but my language school was Pan Pacific College. It's a
Pan
small
Pacific.
language school that offered 2 month intensive TESOL course. So I
Nice.
took the TESOL course and then came back to Japan. I experienced some different jobs, and now I'm a tutor. I'm a language tutor. Yes, I
Great.
support learners in English or in Japanese or both. And so, like, I study English at school, and outside of school, I still kept in touch in English. And in the truest sense, my English journey started when I was 16 because I started exchanging letters with a girl from the US. So at that time, English became not only a school subject, but also a tool to cultivate the new friendship that I got. So I
Wow.
would say, yeah, English and friendships are always one set for me. It's a set. And I think I'm right in saying that my English ability is a byproduct of striving for good friendships. So now I still enjoy international friendships using English. So that's my story basically.
In fact, what you say about the value of friendships, not just for friendship's sake, for having good friends, but also for learning English, we're going to talk about in a little while because that's a really effective way to learn English or any language, is having friends to share it with, right?
Yeah, true.
Okay, so what sort of students do you work with now? What sort of learners?
Ah, yes, I teach Japanese most of my teaching time, but I work with a few Japanese students who study English. Most of them are beginners or intermediate. So most Japanese people are struggling to learn English because, uh, you know, I think one big thing is English and Japanese are very different language,
Yeah,
right? Like linguistic distance is very far. So
yeah,
we need to like put a lot of effort
yeah.
into practicing English. But my students are very hardworking. So
That's
I
good.
had so much fun. Yes, I'm
Are
very
your students
lucky.
are your students varied? Are they varied age groups? Young, older, high school kids? Who are they in age
I
group?
teach adults, so I sometimes teach high school students, and my regular students are uh, in their 30s, or one of them is in their 60s. So, yeah, I
Wow,
can talk to people from different generations.
that's good.
So much fun.
That's a
It's a
kind of skill, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so much fun, and it's the best part of teaching, I think.
That it is a challenge. I think a lot of teachers have a preference of age group.
Mm.
I myself, like you, I like working with students from all different age groups and generations. Right now, I'm working with two high school students,
Mm.
and that's very interesting. And I learn a lot from them. I learn about their generation's concerns and values and interests.
Yeah.
And I've also got someone who's as old as I think 45, which, by the way, is younger than me. So
Mm.
that's interesting too. So as teachers, we can learn from our students if we're
Yes.
open to the differences of their generations, right?
I feel like learning when I teach.
Yeah,
Like I
absolutely.
learn more, right? So it's very I'm very like lucky, fortunate, I would say.
Oh, a little comment here from Emmanuel. Very
Oh,
nice. Thank you,
fantastic. Thank
Emmanuel.
you.
Yeah.
So supportive. Your fans are very supportive, Paul.
It's very humbling, Maki. Again, that time zone's a real deal, right? For me, it's convenient. It's 5 p.m. After the show, I have a nice, relaxing shower and a dinner. But a lot of the folks watching are, in the middle of the night. So I try to work hard to give them a good show and bring them interesting guests so that their time spent is appreciated, because I really appreciate the effort they make to watch this thing.
I'm so impressed. I'm moved.
Yeah, me too. It's what keeps me going, to be honest with you, because
Yes.
this is hard for me to do. It's hard for me to put the show together every week. Takes a lot of time and effort, cost, as I've mentioned. It's physically tiring, because although the show is 1 hour, there's a lot of setup and preparations to make.
For sure.
But the fans keep me going. The people that watch, that make an effort.
Yeah, same with
And by the
me.
way, folks, I forgot to apologize for last week. Last week I had to cancel because my computer burned down. It just crashed, so I couldn't do the show.
Happens. It happens.
Right? Maki, I want to ask you to share. Tell us about Writers Carvings, this great project you do.
Yes.
What is Writers Carvings?
Yes, I started it as my hobby project. So Intan is one of, one of the fans or one of my peers
Okay.
from the get-go. And I just wanted to keep practicing with the people that I met during an English challenge that took place in 2020. And I met Intan there. So I started it casually, but it's growing thanks to my friends. And now it's a platform where, uh, you know, where you can practice writing, or you can have quick quick challenge and writing prompts. And I create one challenge once a year. And Paul helped me with the one that I had last year. So this year I'm thinking of something, but I'm still like working on it to give the shape to it. But my community, or our community, I would say, it's very close knit and organic community. So I don't do much in the community. My peers brought great topics to the community and exchange ideas, initiate conversations. So, like I said, I don't do much. My friends did a lot of things, and I always get more than I ask for. So I'm so grateful to them for being there for me and bringing interesting topics for them for us. So that's what it is basically. It's the community focuses on peer learning, so there's no like leader or anything. Like we are all teach something or learn from each other. So it's very like organic, I would say.
It reminds me of writing workshops I took in university. And the great power of that is when you're writing anything, you're writing alone. And unless you're writing for school, there's very little opportunity for you to get good feedback. And by good feedback, I mean feedback by someone else who's writing. If you write something and you show your mother or your father, first of all, they're going to say, oh, that's wonderful. Or if you show a friend, they might say, oh, yeah, it's not so great. Give up your writing dreams. But they're not writers. If you show it to someone who's also writing, they're in the exact same position as you are, and they're extending themselves. They're sharing something intimate from their thoughts. And it's very scary to do that. But that's how you become a better writer. Ultimately, we write something to share it, to be read. So sharing with a group of other writers who are doing the same with you is incredibly powerful. And you're right, it's peer learning where you're sharing your feedback. Because the one thing a writer can't see in their writing is what the reader sees. Because the reader reads it with fresh eyes. They know nothing about your story or your essay, your idea. But you do. You've labored over it. So you can't see it clearly anymore. So being able to share it with someone and share feedback and tips and advice is incredibly powerful. So when you say you don't do much, what you do is give them that safe space,
Yes.
that supportive, encouraging space to do that. That's
Yeah,
incredible.
so yeah, I sometimes give like a tiny trigger, like small prompt or challenge. But our discussions are always lively because, my community members are used to used to thinking. They think a lot to write or to speak. So I had so much fun talking with them because they are good storytellers. They are good at monitor their thinking and organize their thoughts. So it's just incredible.
That's great. And by the way, I think I believe this very strongly, that writing and reading are essential for learning English. So the fact that your learners are participating in a writing program is just going to make their English so much better than people who don't read or write. English really is a language where you need to read in order to develop your skill with it. You need to read, and if you can write, even better. Which, by the way, is how native speakers learn. We're forced to read a ton of material when we're young. So it's a testament. Writers Carvings is a testament to you for organizing the community, but for all the participants too. They're doing wonderful things.
Yes, they do.
Now, I understand you've brought some questions
Yes.
about English, and I've got them in our captions set up. So let's go through these questions, Maki, and share them with our audience. And the first one is, they're not in the order you and I planned, but I thought they would be better in the order from simplest answer to more complex answer, for time's sake.
Actually, this question is from Intan. So she sent me her question last night, and I really, really want to hear your thoughts on this. So, a lot of people are struggling with building grammatically correct sentences, and we don't know how to help those students. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah. So the question here is not just how to make the correct sentence, but how to help the learner who's trying to, right?
Yes, exactly.
So I would say two things about this, Maki. I would say our different native languages all have different structures, right? Japanese has a very different word order than English. I'm not sure about Indonesian language, but I'm familiar enough with Japanese to know there's a huge difference. So you have to accept that initially. You have to accept that you can't use what you know about word order and language structure from your language. You have to open your mind to English and learn about English word order. How do you do that? And how can we help the students? Well, fortunately, this question identifies the problem. And when you see the problem closely and specifically, you can address it. Word order is a problem of two layers. One is word order. So we can call that syntax, or let's say grammatical, grammatical sequence. Which word goes where, right? So word order, grammatical sequence. That's one layer of the problem. The second layer is parts of speech. Because we are putting different words in the different sequence positions. So in order to know which word goes in the sequence, you really have to understand the parts of speech. Nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs. What words are adverbs? What words are adjectives? In order to put them in the right spot. So How can we help such a learner? Well, we've got to zero in on these two things. If we only teach this, it doesn't solve the whole problem. If we only teach this, it doesn't solve the whole problem. For example, I can tell you that the word home, it can be a noun and it can be an adverb. Well, that doesn't solve the problem of where to put it in a sentence. That just tells us that the word can serve two functions. Okay, so where do those functions lie in the order? So we have to look at both things. This can be learned with vocabulary learning. That's part of the vocabulary. Like, we're going to talk about vocabulary in a moment, but when you learn vocabulary, of course you want to learn the meaning of the word, but you should never stop there. You should understand the different word forms that it can take. Can that word be only a noun or can it be an adverb? The dictionary will tell you that. But a lot of students focus only on the definition. So I'm a big fan of encouraging people to learn the forms of a word. Learn the past tense if it's a verb. Learn if it can be used as an adjective and what form it takes. Because in English, a lot of words have different forms, right? Think of the word interest. Interest can be a noun, okay? It can be a verb. It can have different forms like interested, interesting. It can do a lot of different things, all of which are sharing in the meaning. So how do we help the student? Well, we have to focus on lessons and attention to the different parts of speech as we learn the words, and then focus on the various sentence structures. And that's a little more complicated because there's a lot of variety. But if you really break it down closely, for example, I have a document that sort of charts the building of a sentence from the most basic, right? A subject and a predicate or a verb. I mean, that's the most basic sentence. And sometimes that's all you need, like I run. That has a subject and a verb, and it's a complete idea. So that's a legitimate sentence. I run, it's my hobby, right? Okay, so what can I do? What can I build? How can I build that idea more? Well, I can put an adverb after the verb. I run quickly. I run daily, right? That tells us more information about the idea. It expands the idea. We can also make a sentence and connect it with another sentence using conjunctions, right? And, but, or. So it's good for a student to have a kind of a chart, like the progression of a sentence, the different structure possibilities. And actually, there's not a ton of them. There's a few variations. The complexity builds when you start connecting them with conjunctions, right? Paul runs daily in the park and exercises in the gym. Now that becomes a big sentence, but it's really just two small ones. So there are a few sentence structures that are available, and they just build by connecting to other sentences, and they build by adding adverbs and adjectives. And by the way, if we're studying word forms, adverbs need particular attention because there's a lot of different kinds of adverbs. And a sentence like that can have several adverbs, like yesterday, or let's say every day, comma. Every day is an adverb of time. It tells us when we run. Every day I run quickly, right? And you can even add an adverbial sentence, like to explain why you run. Every day I run quickly because I want to stay healthy. Understanding that that's an adverb explains how to build that sentence. So this question is, how can we help them? We can help them by focusing in on parts of speech, whether it's a lesson you prepare for the student or just having them do some exercises or paying attention when they look up new vocabulary to the different parts that are possible for each word. And then making them aware of the different possible structures from the most basic, and then building them by connecting them to others. Because the sentence can grow and there's absolutely no limit. It could be 2 words or it could be 200 words, actually. We can just pack a lot of modifiers in there. Adverb clauses, adjective clauses, noun clauses, all of those things build. But it starts with some basic building blocks. Subject, verb, complete idea, that's an independent clause. Adding connector words like however or although, now you have a dependent clause. So that's what I do with my students. I focus on the two things that are happening in a sentence. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. Like I still remember I learned like a word order in parts of speech probably like the first class in high school. But in Japan, like I only know about Japan, so teachers like quickly go over it and then
Yeah.
go to other grammatical points. So I think that's why a lot of people get lost in like syntax or parts of speech.
Yeah.
But this is
I
very
think
important part, right?
Yeah, this is essential because ultimately syntax, grammar, this is how we make meaning. This is how we express meanings by the architecture of the sentence. And if we don't get that right, this is why grammar is important. Then the meaning is lost, or you convey the wrong meaning. That just goes against the whole purpose of having a language to communicate with. I think the other thing I would add is that, like you just said, word order or basic syntax is taught very early in language education. And as we've talked about before, education hurries people to the next level pretty quickly. And they learn that kind of thing, pass the test, and then they want to move to the next level and maybe learn verb tense, right? And then they forget that stuff. I always encourage students, especially when they get to an advanced level, when you get to an advanced or even high intermediate level, that's the perfect time to go back and review the basics.
Yes.
Because once you're intermediate or advanced, guess what? You're able to have conversations and everything's moving quickly and you don't pay attention to the grammar. It's really easy at that point to develop bad habits. So at the advanced level, you're kind of at a crossroads where you can develop bad habits that stay with you forever, which is what happens to native speakers, right? A lot of native speakers have terrible grammar habits and they're stuck with them because they stopped after high school or something and they never went back and looked at grammar. Or you can go back and review the basics that you went through quickly in your school system, go back and review them and make sure they're solid, and then go in the direction of good English or more accurate sentences.
Yes,
This is pretty
totally
basic, but it's worth reviewing all the time.
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree. I've had some chances to study like syntax or parts of speech. So when I was in high school and in university and TESOL program and then writing courses. So I think I had at least 4 times to review, and this helps me so much to understand like advanced like grammar and even words and. So I really
One of the,
that.
right in the middle of word order, I just want to say this because it's a problem that comes up constantly, even on this show. If we say that the basic building block of a sentence is the subject and the verb or the predicate, and then words that come after it, then it really means that the verb is kind of in the center of the sentence, right? It's kind of the hinge or the pivot. Everything revolves around that verb. And a lot of students don't understand a very key concept of English verbs, which is transitivity. Because a verb can be either transitive or intransitive in the sentence. And guess what that means? That dictates everything that comes after it. Right? Whether you can put a preposition next and connect other words like nouns, or do you have to have a direct object after it? And that direct object can be either a noun or a gerund or a noun phrase or clause. That's a huge problem, and it starts right in the verb. I see that all the time. One example is the verb listen, right? A lot of students will say, I love to listen music. So that's verb, listen. Music is the noun direct object. But guess what? Listen is not a transitive verb. It cannot have a direct object after it. It needs a preposition. So we really have to focus on that in order to really get a really strong grip on sentence structure. And most education skips over the transitivity issue. For me, it's an absolutely core issue in grammar. It's also why often in English we can end a sentence right here with the word run. Run does not need a direct object. It's intransitive. So we can end there. But a transitive verb like enjoy, we need an object. We need to enjoy something. So we can't make a sentence that says, oh, I enjoyed. Or I like. Like what? Enjoyed what? In English, you have to have a noun after those two verbs. That's different than another language like Japanese, where you can end the sentence with like.
Yes.
Right? So that's a challenge. And I think if we're going to help our students really grasp word order, at some point we need to talk about transitivity as well.
Yes. I agree.
It's so important. When I made my web series English Weirdness, transitivity became a 2-part episode. And I will put the link down here. It became a 1-hour, 2 by 30-minute episode because it's such a large and important topic. So I'm going to put that in the chat here. It's complex, it's tricky, but it's essential.
Yes. So when I noticed intransitive and transitive, like everything became clearer. So I recommend checking out the full video. If you're
Hopefully it helps explain it.
curious.
It's a simple distinction, but it changes everything that comes after the verb.
Yeah.
So if we're going to build a sentence, we really have to, you get to the verb pretty quickly in a sentence. You have a subject and pretty soon you're going to see the verb. But what comes after it can be so many different things. And that depends on the transitivity of the verb. What's allowed to come after it, what's possible and what's not possible. Before we go to the next question, let's check in on a couple of comments here from our friends. Oh, thank you, Chris. It's very kind of you. My old friend Zulkarnin. Zulkarnin, long time no see, my friend. How are you? I think we have a Maki fan here.
Yay!
And Zulkarnin says, great. We have Irina. Do you know Irina?
Oh, Irina. Yes, Irina. She is an amazing writer. She
Great.
can write like only with one word. Like I gave only one word, she can create a whole writing piece. She is amazing.
That's wonderful. And what country are you watching from, Irina? Do you know, Maki?
Oh, Serbia? I'm not really sure.
Serbia?
My memory is not
Okay.
really good.
Irina, if you're watching still, please tell us where you are
Yeah.
and what time it is. I think it's probably
It's
quite...
really late.
Yeah.
for Serbia.
Here we have another comment. Does giving them stories and asking them to analyze the structure, syntax, part of speech help them overcome their difficulty? Absolutely. Reading is essential. I'll say it 100 times. If you want to learn English, sooner or later you've got to get reading into it. That's how native speakers learn English, by reading a ton. We have to. By the time we finish high school, we've read like dozens of novels, full-length novels as kids. Because English is such an irregular language. You have to see it visually. You can't really just learn it by listening to it. Of course, everyone loves movies and TV shows and music, so they just want to do that stuff. They want to learn by hearing it, and you have to read it. So this is a great method, right? I always like to mention when people ask a question about reading and stories, that's how I learned English. When I was young, Maki, I was a very quiet, shy kid. I didn't have friends. I never talked at school. What I did was read a lot. So when students tell me, oh, Paul, you're such a good speaker of English, You know how I got to be a good speaker? By reading. Because for years as a child, I just read. And when I got to be a teenager and it was time to come out of my shell and make friends and participate, I was a good speaker. I had been preparing it for it by reading. I'd been putting those structures into my mind. And once I had the confidence to speak, good sentences came out. With a lot of other garbage. I was a teenager, but reading's essential. So stories, especially if they're interested in those topics or stories, that's crucial. Who else do we have with us? Good point. Okay, thank you. We also have with us Yudi.
Oh, Yudi. Hi, Yudi.
One of your fans. Great. Thank you for joining us,
He's
Yudi.
from Indonesia.
Indonesia, okay.
I think, this is the Yudi that I know.
And Irena is from Serbia. Great. And it's late. It's 3 a.m. in Belgrade. Aww. Yes, wonderful. Thank you for joining us, Irena.
Thank you.
Well, Maki, let's go to the next question.
Okay.
This question's about the IELTS exam.
Oh, yes. Yes. So,
can you give me a little background about this before, and I'll erase the board?
Okay. So one of my friends tries to take IELTS exam, and she's really struggling with the IELTS writing part. And she sent me a question, and she said, like, what should I do when I don't have any idea about the topic? Like, what do I have to write, or what should I write? So that was her concern, and I hope you can give me some like tips or like idea or thoughts on this.
It's a great question, and something I'm asked a lot because a lot of students come to me to prepare for the IELTS test, and before we make our contract, I always tell them, look, I'm not going to prepare you for the exam. There are teachers that specialize in test prep, learning how many minutes the test is long, how many minutes you have for the writing, how many minutes you have for the speaking, what the test looks like, what the room is going to look like. Those are good to know because they reduce the surprises. So that reduces the nervousness. You don't have to figure so much out when you get to the test. So you should always work with someone like that, a test prep coach, close to the time you do the test. But it's important to remember IELTS test or TOEFL or TOEIC or CELPIP in Canada, all of them are tests of your English skill. If your English skill is high, you're going to do fine, right? I could know nothing about the test, but I could go in there and I could do very well because I'm a native speaker with some advanced English skill. It tests your English skill. It's not a test of academic knowledge. So they're not interested in whether you know the history of the Peloponnesian War or the atomic theory. They're not testing your academic knowledge. They're testing your English skill. So they are going to give you questions that anybody could answer, no matter what you have studied or majored in, right? They're going to ask you questions about your daily life or experiences of childhood, because we've all had a childhood, high school things, topics about foods, topics about shopping, traveling, things like that you are able to answer. So you should never worry about getting a topic that you don't have knowledge or information to answer. And even if you did get a question that you kind of felt like, I don't know what to say about that, you can make it up. You can totally lie in an IELTS test. You can just be creative, right? They're not going to care about the content's topic as long as it's answering the question. They don't care how real it is or true it is. They're looking at your writing skill, how well you express it. So, for example, if they did ask you, tell me the story of the Peloponnesian War in ancient Greece, you could just make up a story, right? You could just make up a story about a turtle army and a bunch of rebellious rabbits who had a big fight. You could just make a story. They're looking at your English. So there's that. I would also suggest if the IELTS exam is really important to someone, like they have to pass it to get into university or they have to pass it to immigrate, it's worth the effort to hire a writing coach. This is something I do professionally. Not to teach you about the test, but to improve your writing. If your writing isn't strong enough to walk in and get a great score, right? So it's kind of two things that I work with students. I have a friend, teacher Andrea, and she can do test preparation for some of these tests. So sometimes I work with a student for a few months, getting their foundational writing skills improved, and then send them to Andrea, who can teach them about the test. That helps. The truth is, the harsh truth is, if your writing skill is weak or low, you're probably not going to get a great mark on the test, even if you know all the tips and tricks of the test. It's just not going to work. I think a lot of students focus on things like learning special advanced vocabulary, and they think they can just sprinkle it on their writing sample like spice, and it's magically going to get a high score. I see this all the time when I look at some of these tests. I see a pretty not bad paragraph or sentence, but really strangely positioned advanced vocabulary that doesn't need to be there. And because it's out of place, it's going to reduce their score. So magic words don't work. Good fundamental writing works. Good sentences, well-developed idea works. You know? Does that make sense to you, Maki, in your experience?
Yes, like the writing skill, like good writing skill is a life skill, right? So like exam prep is just for IELTS, but like fundamental writing skills is a life skill. You can have it anywhere and you can use it anytime. So I recommend watching. Do you like whole sensei, do you still have your like course like that I took?
I do, sure. It's available.
I strongly recommend that course.
Oh,
if you
thank you.
took IELTS, because it's really clear, and I understand. I understood what to do when I write after watching your videos. So, so this is like I cannot recommend enough.
Well, thank you. It's still under construction, but the first half of the course is available on Udemy and my own Thinkific platform. And that course is designed to train the writer in some really important fundamental concepts that make all writing great. Of course, there's genius writers through history in every language group, but a lot of writing has sort of fundamental structure behind it, because the goal of writing is to express an idea to a reader. And I think a lot of language learners, because they're so focused on trying to assemble a sentence, they forget all about the reader. And that's the biggest mistake you can make. Everything you write, except for a private diary, is designed to be read by some mysterious reader, and you don't know who that person is usually. So you have to pay attention to, you have to learn to think about the reader's perspective, what they want to know, what they need to know at a certain moment, what information they're looking for, and this is something I teach very, very in depth, is what questions do they have when they read a simple sentence? For example, if I said, the weather is never nice. Okay, sorry guys, I'm a little off side here. Let me just move that. The weather is never nice. What questions come to your mind when you read that? Now you're the reader. The weather is never nice. I'm sure you have questions. Maki, do you have a question?
Yeah, never nice. Like like, why do you think so?
Sure.
Or
Why?
why do you think
Why
so?
is it never nice?
Never nice. Or where is
Yeah,
the weather? Like what where
exactly. I'm just saying the weather. Where? Your country's weather is different than my country's weather. And by the way, my country is so big, the weather's different from every town,
for sure.
right? And it's different than all of our guests' countries. So we can't just say the weather. The reader is going to wonder where. Is never nice. We might also ask, what do you mean by nice? Because nice is an adjective. And adjectives are subjective. They're different for every person. So what's nice for me might be different than nice for you. We need a clearer definition here. So guess what? If you can think of these questions, anyone reading that sentence is going to have those same questions. And they're going to want answers in the paragraph. So teaching my students how to ask questions every time you write a sentence, especially a statement, it raises questions for the reader, and you have to anticipate what those questions will be so that you can provide the answers in your writing. So when a student says, "Oh gosh, teacher, I don't know what to write," this is what you write. You write the information that a reader is going to expect based on that sentence. And when you answer a question like where, the weather in my country, Canada, is never nice, new questions pop up. So learning what questions a reader will ask in their mind will improve your writing, because it's going to guide what you need to put into your sentences, into your paragraphs. That's essential. That's a foundational skill for writing. And I would venture to say most writing classes or schools don't teach that. And, some kids grow up in education systems that don't encourage them or teach them how to ask questions. And maybe it shuts down their curiosity. When they go to write, they don't know what to write,
Yeah.
right? They haven't been taught how to express their opinions and provide the information like this. So learning about the reader's perspective and thinking about it always is essential. If you're writing an essay in academics, you need to think about the pieces of information the reader needs to understand your concept. If you're writing a story, you have to think about what the reader knows at which moment to create drama, to create suspense, to create surprise. It's very carefully crafted for the effect on the reader. That's essential.
I love
So,
this.
yeah, so if we don't do that, if we don't really include the information a reader needs, the IELTS score is probably going to get low, right? It's not going to be great, because I think I have an IELTS rubric here. Yeah, I do. When they mark an IELTS test, there are 4 major categories. One is vocabulary, one is grammar, one is how well you completed the task. One other one, 25%, is the content of the idea. That's what this is. Did you express fully and clearly your idea? This is fully. So if you don't do this, you're affecting 25% of the grade, right? And it's not a question of like, do I understand the topic? Do I know about the Peloponnesian War or the molecular function of atoms? No, it's about, do you answer the potential questions that a reader might have,
That's incredible. I love this so much.
By the way, Irena has questions too. What is the cause that the
Yes.
weather is never nice? Yeah, the cause. What is the cause? Right? What is the reason for that? They're readers, because I just put that on the board and they're seeing it for the first time and questions naturally pop up. So a good writer learns to anticipate, okay, what questions does a reader want to ask? Do they naturally ask when they read something? I have to think like that so I know how to answer it. I know that I need to answer it. So writing isn't just writing the sentences that you think are nice. That's part of it, but you've got to think about what the reader wants and then deliver it. Because if you don't, the reader's going to read your paragraph and go, crappy paragraph. Right? That's not a very interesting paragraph. And by the way, I still don't know why the weather isn't nice.
Yeah.
Right? Imagination. Yes. Okay. Does that help? Do you think that helps answer that question?
Yes, this is a very interesting activity.
Yeah.
Can I do it with my friends?
Of course, yeah. I don't own the activity. I just kind of found it in my teaching experience. I found that this worked. I worked with a lot of students who would tell me they'd write a little superficial paragraph that kind of said nothing. And I would say, you've got to elaborate more. I have so many questions that you don't answer. Well, teacher, I can't write anymore. I don't know what to write. So I started developing this kind of technique to give feedback. So what I would do is, and maybe if some of you are watching, you'll remember this, in my writing workshop at my old language school, we would use Google Docs for their writing assignments. And I would, every time they wrote a sentence, I would write in the comments a question that I had. And then I would look and see if they actually answered it later. And I would teach them, do you ever answer that question in your paragraph? The next sentence, the question that comes up. Sometimes the answer would be in the subsequent sentences. Sometimes they never addressed it. Sometimes they'd make a statement and then never elaborate, never explain. So I would have these, my feedback consisted not just of like verb tense error, questions. Questions are powerful feedback, Maki, because they have to think, why is he asking that question? Well, because I never answer it in my paragraph. So in their second draft, now they know what information needs to go in this paragraph in the second draft, because I've asked all these questions for which there are no answers in the written piece. So the second draft, they know that that's what they have to put in there. Right?
Cool.
So I use it as a feedback tool.
Nice.
And it's really, and by the way, it's really annoying. Right? And guess what happens when something's annoying? You change your habit. You have a child. How old is your child, Maki?
My son is 5 years old.
5. And have you taught him to tie his laces on his shoes yet?
Yes.
How many times did you have to say, tie up your shoes before you go out? How many times have you said that to him? Probably 100 maybe.
I can't count.
Right? And sooner or later, your son is going to say, Mom, I know, you don't have to tell me. Because he's annoyed. He's had enough of your feedback. Now he's ready to take charge of it because he hears your voice in his head. Now he knows to do it on his own. That's how you learn something. Yeah. Feedback can be annoying, but that can be effective. Yes. As teachers, we should never be afraid to be annoying.
Yes,
it's part of our job. In that kind of repetitive way, like, I'm going to say this again and again. And it's going to get annoying, and they're going to change their habit.
Great.
Let's take a look at the next question, Maki.
Yes.
This is an interesting one. So, can you catch me up on this one a little bit?
Yeah, so like many of my friends have a hard time increasing vocabulary. Like we forget and we can't use the words that I've learned. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on like healthy vocabulary building. Like how can we increase our vocabulary? And I know there are so many content or videos about vocabulary out there in the world, and it's a little bit challenging to find good content too.
Yeah.
So I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah. Well, I completely agree with you about social media. There's a lot of social media content about vocabulary, and a lot of it takes this form, like don't say this, say this. Especially on TikTok, I've seen a lot of content that says don't do this, do this. Don't say this, say this. I have a slight problem with that because they're telling you that these words are no good and these words are good English. Another form that it takes is they'll say normal English or basic English, and then advanced English or better English. They never tell you why it's normal, what's normal about it. They never tell you what's better about it. They just tell you this is garbage and this is good. I have a problem with that. Because what they're telling you is that this word isn't as good as the synonym that's over here. And they're telling you, don't learn these words, learn these words. That's a problem. Because it also points to a lie that a lot of students learn, which is the lie about synonyms. A lot of students are taught from well-meaning teachers that synonyms are two words that are different but have the same meaning. That's not true. If two words exist, they exist because they express different meanings. The difference can be tiny, but they're different. If they express two different meanings, that tells me that both words are essential. We shouldn't throw one in the garbage, even if it's normal or basic. It has a purpose. So I would never tell a student, don't learn these ones, learn these ones. I would say, learn them both. Sooner or later, both can be useful, right? It might be a question of register, like this one's casual, this one's formal. It might be a question of this one's more commonly used by some people, and this one's kind of rare. But then you have to ask, which people are using this? Teenagers on TikTok? Maybe. Is that the English that you dream of being able to use? You're aspiring to teenager English? Or do you want to aspire to a higher level of English for university or professional life? Then you're not going to want to sound like a teenager on TikTok. You want to sound more advanced, more proficient. So there's a real slippery game that's happening on social media, and I don't think it's all that helpful. I think it's kind of confusing. So if you see on TikTok anyone saying, don't say this, or basic, advanced, or normal and better, ignore what they're telling you and learn both lists of words. Because both are useful. They have different meanings. So that's the first thing I would say about learning vocabulary. I'm not saying that learning on TikTok is bad. It's better than nothing. If your whole life is on TikTok, you're going to learn something about vocabulary. But if we're asking, how can I learn vocabulary, or what's the best way? So maybe the question should be, how should I learn vocabulary? I would say this. I would say always learn vocabulary in context. Right? Learn vocab in context. Okay, this is crucial. This is how a native speaker child learns, or any language child. They learn by doing. They're in the world doing stuff with their friends or their mother and father, and they see objects. And when they point to an object and say, two children are playing, or child and mother are playing, and the child points to that thing, and they go, and mother says, oh, ball. Now they know the word. And maybe they need a second time, ball, baseball. But not only are they seeing the word on a list of vocabulary, abstracted from context, they're hearing you say the word, they're looking at the object the word represents, and they have a kind of metacognitive memory of being in that room with mother pointing to the ball and saying ball. It's like a little movie in their minds, in their memory. And that's how we learn things, because those different layers reinforce the memory. So context, what is context and where can we get it? Well, as I said, real life, a real life situation is how a child learns with their mother and later in school. For adults, that could be things like travel, talking to friends. You said earlier you like to use your English and meeting friends from around the world. Perfect. Right? Using the language with friends gives you constant context, especially if you're together, doing things together, like let's go to Disneyland together. You share that experience, and you're learning language together in the context of that shared experience. And now you have a visual memory and an audio memory. All of that reinforces the absorption of the vocabulary. You're not just memorizing words on a list that aren't even in a sentence, right? So the context can be real life situations. They can be context like in the written form, which is another reason why I recommend reading. Reading puts words in the context of a sentence, right? So reading contexts, these are all different contexts. You read a story like Harry Potter, and you imagine the world Harry Potter's in, all the new words you encounter make sense because they're inside the story context. And you have a visual representation in your mind, and maybe there's one thing you don't know the word of. Well, that's the new word. And that's when you should have a dictionary. Yes, you can just read the dictionary and memorize every word in it, but that's not really effective because they're not in a context of a sentence. So I would say, when you read, have a dictionary close to you at all times, whether it's a digital dictionary or a hard copy dictionary, it doesn't matter. And when you encounter a new word, look it up. And then when you look it up and you understand the definition and the word forms, now go back to the sentence you saw it in and try to make sense of that context. So taking the word out of the context, looking it up, and putting it back in the context, again, reinforces that learning. The last thing I would recommend is memorizing lists. Because what's the context of a list? The list itself. And we don't use word in lists. So it's a kind of artificial context. Right? If I look at a list of words and their meanings, maybe I have one here actually. This is kind of a vocabulary list. You can kind of see it. Maybe it's a little dark, right? Yeah. Vocabulary and then the meanings. The words are not in sentences. There's no order to the list except alphabetical. That's not how we encounter words in real life. So it's a very artificial context that has no sense to it. So it's a terrible way to learn vocabulary. Terrible way. It's a terrible way and not effective. Because even if you can memorize that list, boom, 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 if you have some power memory, you're not going to be able to use the word in a sentence because you haven't practiced using the word in a sentence. So the other thing I would say is speak and write. Use your new vocabulary and practice with it and get feedback. Did I use the word well? Did I use it accurately, teacher? Get the feedback. But you have to try to put it into the sentence that you're thinking of. Because when you do that, what are you doing? You have an idea, you have a new word, you think it fits the meaning of your sentence, you try it, and you find out whether it works or not. And by the way, just telling your friend, using the new vocabulary in a sentence with your friend is either going to understand your idea or not, and they're going to tell you. So that's a kind of feedback.
Yes.
Right? If you use the word out of place or inaccurately, they're going to look at you like, huh? What do you mean? Oh, maybe that word's not correct. Okay, now I've tried it, but I've got some feedback. I got to go back and check that meaning again. A lot of students don't do these things, though, when they're in a school system especially. They just try to memorize it, pass the test, and throw the word in the garbage and never use it again. So learn the word in context. Use it by putting it into your context of your idea or your words, right? Your sentence to your friend. That is the right loop to use vocabulary in it.
Yeah. Good. Cool.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes, absolutely. So, like, I consider speaking or language learning as a sport. So I always try to use my ears, eyes, and mouth, and like hands, like writing.
Yeah.
So I recommend using like all the senses you can use.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
repetition is the key.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. One of my colleagues did a lot of research and has developed an educational theory called embodied learning. And it's all about putting the words into your body and making them physical, because language is, like you said, it's like a sport. It's physical. It uses muscles. It uses the same cognitive loop, neurological loop of brain to muscle that a sport does. So you have to practice. You have to put the words into your mouth. You have to make them physical. So when you're learning, that's maybe another thing we should mention here, maybe down here, and speak the word. It doesn't hurt to just say a word 100 times. Practice the pronunciation. Just get it into your mouth. Get that word feeling comfortable. It's a physical, communication is a physical thing. Even writing with your fingers is physical.
Exactly. So it's really challenging to control your body, actually. So you know how to pronounce, but you can't produce the sound. So you need, it's like a training.
We have some new viewers with us. We have Anish from On the Spot. And we have, Nayana says, yes, I love this expression, live my English. Right? It's not an abstract piece of knowledge to memorize. English, like all language, is a physical skill. It's a communicative skill. It's something you have to do. Yes. Here's another comment. Use all of our senses. Exactly. Right? Listen to the words. See the word. You know, that's the thing. With English, especially, you do have to see it. So it comes back to reading. We have words that sound the same but are spelled very differently. You have to see those differences in order to really understand how they're used. So you got to use your visual senses with reading. We also have Angel. Angel's with us. Learning is like swimming. It's not possible to learn to swim only with theory. Exactly.
So true.
If any of you have learned a sport, there's usually, when I learned sports as a young teenager, here's how I did it. I watched it on TV, I got excited, and I went outside and imitated my heroes. So watching is one thing. You can learn the rules of the game, but sooner or later you got to go out and try it, right?
Yeah.
And at first it is kind of like an imitation, but then you start using it more proficiently on your own. So absolutely, I love the analogy to a sport. Right? And by the way, different languages use different muscles for speech. Right? And we have to learn to use the muscles of English. It requires different movements. We also have Anish, it's important to visualize yourself using it with confidence. Exactly. Language is remembered when it's experienced. Exactly. And you experience things in context. Real life, travel, talking to friends. Because Anish is here, I will add talking to friends and strangers, which is what his students at his program On the Spot Language do. They talk to strangers, right? I think I missed someone here. Oh, yeah, I want to say hello to Roni. Roni hasn't been with us for a while. He's from Bangladesh. Welcome, Roni. Good to see you again. Well, you've given us some really great questions here, Maki, and thank you, and thank you your students, your clients for bringing them. But does anyone else have questions for Maki? Anyone want to ask Maki some questions? Put her on the spot, Anish. Do you have some questions? Let me just write that up. Here.
Oh, thank you.
Anyone have a question for Maki? Oh, question. Gosh, bad spelling teacher. What the heck? Let me edit that. You know, as English teachers, I think it's very important to model good English for our students. I'm a little obsessive about it because, for example, when I write feedback on my student writers' writings, I type quickly because there's lots of feedback to give, and all the time I'm making little errors. And I can't let it sit. I have to use a capital to begin the sentence and good punct, because everything is an example to them.
Yes, for sure.
And the same with these tickers. If I get one little mishap, I'm very concerned about it.
Yeah, but we would never, misspell the question anymore. That's a real life experience for us.
Errors, especially errors in context, are memorable.
Yes.
But something we were talking about also before is that, gosh, what was it? I lost my train of thought, Maki. We were talking in a previous chat about modeling our language, example. Gosh, anyways, mustn't have been that important. End of the week, I'm a little stupid, so this happens. Does anyone have a question for Maki?
Do you have? No?
Sorry, go ahead, Maki, please.
Oh yeah, I liked what we talked about, like slowness, like in the English industry, everyone is like everything is fast, and we kind of forget to take time and reflect, and so I love that conversation.
Yeah. We were talking about, for example, movies and how we appreciate a slow-moving movie. And so many people will say, oh, that movie was bad, it was too slow. And my question as a cinema fan is, why do movies have to be fast? Fast is for roller coasters, right? If you want to appreciate the beauty and the art of cinema, sometimes you have to take it slow and absorb it. And what we were discussing was learning the language in a school setting. They rush you along through the levels, get to the test, go to the next level, get to the test. And what happens is you end up discarding the last semester or the last segment's information in your race to get to the end and graduate. It's not a very effective way of learning a language. Time is an essential ingredient to learning. So we should all be patient.
Yes.
Even though the school is rushing you, or you have to get your IELTS done to get to university by September so you can apply, and everything's rushing you, the reality is learning a language always involves time, right? It's like cooking. We were talking about cooking analogy, right? If you look at any recipe for any kind of dish, one of the lists in the ingredients, one of the things they always mention is how long it takes to cook. Put it in the oven for 30 minutes, 32. Very specific, because it's an essential ingredient in the process. It's an essential ingredient in the process of learning a language too. Anish has a question for you.
Oh, what do you like the most about? This is a good question, actually.
It's putting us both on the spot.
Yes. Like I love, Paul's show because he always listens to his fans or his students, right? And I see a lot of like ESL stars on YouTube or on social media. It's good to share something, of course, but like it's really hard to reach to the person. Like in a big community, I love the teacher, but like I have never talked to her. And I think that's a little bit sad, but Paul always listen to his fans, and you have like great fans here, great
They're
student,
incredible,
hardworking, the most hardworking student here. So I love
staying up at all crazy hours.
Yeah. So I love that about your show. Always listen to people, and very humble.
Thank you.
And I love it.
It's
Very
it's really the
gentle. Very gentle.
it's really the basis of the show. The show was a way of interacting with students during the pandemic and making them feel not so alone. Helps me not feel so alone and isolated. That's how this thing started, right? And when I was thinking about a format for the live show, there was no question about it. I knew that I had to be be on screen, answering their questions, because that's what's missing with the whole YouTube experience, as you said. There's great content out there and some bad content, a lot of bad English content out there, but there's some great stuff. But the problem is, as you said, you're just sitting there watching it, which has some use, but you can't ask the questions that you need. So that's really what I wanted to focus on. So thank you for appreciating that. Oh, that's very nice, Anish. Thank you.
Mine is just
Like we said earlier, yeah, absolutely. We said earlier, we were marveling at the people that were tuning in tonight from all over the world, Uganda, Morocco, and they're all at these odd hours, like 3 in the morning. Emmanuel in Uganda was up at 3 in the morning. Chris in Belgium was up at 2. Someone was up at 5, I think Nayana or Intan. Like, I appreciate that so much. I know that that takes so much dedication, effort. How can, that motivates me to deliver a great show for them and to bring them interesting guests and to answer their questions.
I'm so grateful. I can never take it for granted.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an honor to be able to do this. I mean, it really is. To be able to teach English to anyone is an honor. For example, at a language school, it was an honor to meet all these students in person and welcome them to my country and share my knowledge with them and help them improve. But, I would have 15 students maximum in a classroom. And usually in my classes, because I taught advanced students, there'd be like 5 or 6. When I had the opportunity to deliver a live show, it really occurred to me one night that I can reach anybody anywhere in the world, basically. And started to. And people started to show up from all these countries and all the corners of the world, far away from my city and my country. It's incredibly humbling. It's an amazing honor. Anyone have another question for Maki? Anyone? Maybe they all fell asleep. Understandable. It's now probably 4 a.m.
I'm so impressed.
Oh, thank you, Emmanuel. He's still awake. Good job, Emmanuel. You're still awake. Very impressive. Oh, yes. Here's a great question from Anish. Thank you, Anish. Oh, no, sorry. This is from Angel. Thank you, Angel. This one's from Anish. Okay.
What's my next challenge? Actually, I just finished the first draft for my challenge last night, and I'm going to work with my close friend Carolina from Bolivia, and we're going to create a challenge. Probably, I'm not sure, in autumn, I would say.
Okay.
Where I'm going to prepare, and I hope other teachers will join. If you're interested, please let me know. I love collaborating with amazing language learners and also mentors, facilitators, and teachers. We're going to have fun. It's going to be a writing party.
Writing party, I love it.
Writing party.
It's the best kind of party. And we have, from Irena, we have a smiley face. Thank you, Irena.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Any other questions for Maki? Or should we let Maki get on with her day?
Yes.
It's morning for you, right?
It's morning on Saturday, 10:30 now. And I'm going to take a walk with my son after this.
Lovely. Well, maybe your son's waiting on us, so we should let you go.
Thank you.
Maki, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much. It was such
This
an
morning.
honor. It's always lovely talking to you, Paul Sensei.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very kind of you to join us. So everybody, please say thank you to Maki for joining us tonight. And we'll definitely have you back again another time, Maki.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Okay. Maki, take care, and I'll catch up with you soon. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Wow, she's amazing. I'm always so impressed with what she does. Thank you, Maki, for everything you've shared with us tonight, for bringing those questions, sharing your story with us, and generating some great conversation with our guests. And thank you guys for joining the show tonight. We went a little bit over time, so I'm definitely due to say goodnight to you. But first, let me say thank you for joining us tonight. As always, it's a great privilege and honor to be with you. Irene says, I'm not sleeping. Thank you for staying up, Irene. Bye, Maki. Yes, thank you, guys. Okay, guys, I'm going to say goodnight. Until the next time I see you, please take care. Keep learning your English. And as always, stay cool. Thanks for watching tonight's show. If you have an English grammar question, an English mystery, contact me on social media and send me a video of you asking the question. I'll investigate it on a future show. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button to get all the updates about videos and events. If you're feeling generous, you can also donate to the production costs of the show at Patreon or buy me a coffee. Finally, until the next time I see you on Hardboiled English Live, I want you to keep learning English. Stay healthy and stay cool.